Hey, good morning, Northway. I hope that you guys are staying safe and staying warm during these wintry conditions. I want to thank you all for being patient with us as we kind of tried to figure out the best way to move forward with this weekend's programming. So thank you all for your patience there. And we do hope that the short sermon that Matt has prepared to preach this morning will be a blessing to you guys as you're snowed in or whatever you're getting up to today. And even though we're not gathering in person, we did have some information that we still wanted to get in front of you guys. So before I pass it off to Matt, a couple of quick announcements for us. The first one is that Sending Summit is coming up on February 6th and 7th. So we've been talking a lot about Sending Summit, and this is just another reminder that we would love to see you there. On Friday night, there's going to be a keynote from one of our key partners, Dave Furman, who's with Gulf Theological Seminary in Dubai. There'll be worship on Friday night as well. And then on Saturday morning, there's going to be breakout sessions covering all kinds of topics about church planting. There will also be children's programming. So the reminder here is really that if you're planning on coming Saturday morning, we'd love for you to go ahead and get your children signed up for that today if possible. Another registration reminder is that training class registration is also coming to a close today. So this is your last chance. If you are interested in signing up for a class, go ahead and hop on that today. Our men's and women's Bible class, those are 99% full, but we still have plenty of room in our 6-week classes on the one another's and on financial peace. So I would encourage you, if you're interested in jumping into Northway training, go ahead and get signed up for that today. And then last but not least, if you're a young adult out there, our young adult retreat registration is still open. There's still some spots left. So we just want to encourage you guys that if you've been thinking about signing up for that, go ahead and get registered for it sooner rather than later. I know it's going to be a great weekend of growing spiritually, meeting, making new friends. Whether you're brand new to Northway, whether you've been here a long time, I know that that event is always a lot of fun. So we hope to see you there if you're a young adult. All right, that's all I've got for announcements this morning. I'll now kick it over to Matt.
Happy Sunday, Northway Church. I hope that you are at home and so warm right now. We did everything we could to think about worshiping together Sunday, what that could look like, and just made the decision here on Friday. Listened to a bunch of smart people that said that we were probably going to be covered in a winter blanket. And so that's what we're believing right now. But all that to say, we still wanted to give you something that around your living rooms or wherever you are, that we could just spend a few minutes in God's Word together. We're going to push our Belong sermon to a future date. We're just being mindful of the fact that I know you have kids running around, and in the next 5 minutes, it's a guarantee that somebody's going to spill something. And so I'll be brief. But with that said, I want to zero in on this cold day and think about God's grace to us. And speaking of a cold day, man, my heart, 30 years into my walk with Jesus, my heart can still just get frozen sometimes. And I mean, I'm not exaggerating. I can wake up in the morning sometimes and completely forget that I'm a Christian. And I'm not even joking. I can be so grumpy, I can be so in my flesh, I can be so given to whatever I'm worried about that I miss the gospel of grace. And that doesn't just happen throughout, or in the morning, that can happen throughout the day. And I don't think I'm the only one. I think I'm very apt to forget the gospel. And I think that's the key word for our little homily today, because I think there's a difference actually between forgetting and forgetting, if you know what I'm talking about. So let me read this passage. This is 2 Peter chapter 1, verse 9. And what Peter does is, after he lists a number of virtues that you supplement your faith with, he makes this statement, and this statement's really profound. He says, "But whoever does not have the aforementioned virtues is nearsighted and blind." And listen to what he says, "forgetting that they have been cleansed from their past sins." Now, I think it was Tim Keller that first pointed out to me that can't mean that they've actually forgotten, out of mind, that they're a Christian. It can't mean that. And so for me, it goes something like this. What's the difference between forgetting and forgetting, or however I'm emphasizing those two things? The first one is when my daughter, who's now a freshman, and this probably happened about the 7th grade because she's smart, she came up to me with math and science homework, and I was just like, "Sister, I don't know. I vaguely remember studying this, but I literally have no idea." how to help. That's just a bunch of numbers and letters, and I have no clue. Go ask your mom. Maybe I can help you with your history and your English. I literally forgot how to do that, okay? Contrast that with another type of forgetting. My grandmother, who is as dear a matriarch to any family that's ever, she has been nothing but good to me my entire life. She is in her late 90s, and she lives right down the road off Royal Lane. That's the home that she lives in. And I think I've said this before, that she is with us, but not with us. She's in a long-term hospice. She doesn't recognize anyone. And there are times that I forget, even with her so close, she was recently moved there, to prioritize her by going to see her. Now, what I'm not saying is that I forget that my grandma lives there. That's crazy. I know that consciously. But what I am saying is that I forget to prioritize her. And I think that's the kind of forgetting that Peter is talking about, that when we do not actively supplement our faith, we can forget that we have been cleansed from our former sins. And so what are 4 things that I do, especially on this cold day when my heart gets frozen? What are 4 things I do when I begin to forget the gospel? You know, the gospel is so simple that it can be described in 3 words. J.I. Packer said this: God saves sinners. And the gospel is so complex and so vast that angels are mesmerized by the gospel. They don't understand it. And so I would not venture to articulate to you that this is the fullness of the gospel. Nobody can do that. The gospel, I've been told, is like a diamond, and you just hold it up, and it's what side of the diamond do you want to look at? What side do you want to emphasize? And so these are 4 aspects of the gospel that I remember. I try to remember on those days that my heart feels cold. And that's where we're spending our time today. The first is self-substitution. I remember the self-substitution of God. R.C. Sproul said this: the first Adam looked at his wife and said, blame her. And the second Adam, Jesus Christ, looks at his wife and says, blame me. That in the heart of Christianity, you have a self-substituting God. You have a God who, as Peter will say in another place, who suffered once for sins, the righteous for the unrighteous, that he might bring us to God. That there was this train barreling down the tracks, and we were on the tracks, and God's wrath and God's justice were coming with that train. And in the 11th hour, inexplicably, God comes up and he pushes us away, and he absorbs the punishment that we deserved. That when my heart gets cold, I think about the self-substitution of God. I think about the God who took everything that I deserved. And maybe a segue or a cousin to that is I think about forgiveness and restoration. When I was in high school, my grandpa, I was in a bad way. I was in a bad way. And I was leaving my high school one Sunday, and I had a newer truck, and there was a sophomore, I think, and he was kind of egging me on. And so we were revving our engines, and we were trying to get to the exit, and he kind of came in front of me, and so I came in front of him. And then before you knew it, his Mustang and my truck had collided. And, he gets out, and we have words, and, the dad calls me that night, his dad, and he's super reasonable, and he goes, hey, I think this is your fault, and I'm going to need, I think it was $800. And I'm not kidding you, $800 then would have been like the same thing as $80,000. I did not have it. And my mom was like, you're on your own. And so I'll never forget calling my grandpa, telling him my predicament, going over to his house, and making my case to him about why this guy was to blame. And I'm about halfway through this run-on sentence about how it's his fault and how he was edging out in the parking lot, yada, yada. And my grandpa, I'll never forget it. He just goes, hey, be quiet. Just be quiet. Just stop talking. He said, here's what's going to happen. He says, you're going to be a man. He said, you're going to take responsibility, and you're going to pay him what you owe him. And I'll never forget this. He gets out his checkbook, and he writes me a check for the money. And he says, you're going to pay him, and we're going to learn from this, and we're going to get better. And I will never forget leaving his house with the weight, the debt that I could not pay off of my shoulders. I'll never forget that. And on the days when my heart gets cold, I remember Psalm 32. Blessed are those whose transgressions are forgiven, whose sins are covered. I remember that Jesus, Peter, in John's gospel, Peter denies Jesus 3 times, the last time to a little girl. And you find that reckoning moment. And what you don't hear from Jesus is more than forgiveness. Simon, do you love me? Of course I love you. But in the forgiveness is also the restoration. He doesn't just say, hey, okay, let me absolve this and let's just stop talking about it in this passive-aggressive way that so many of us in our family context do forgiveness. He looks at him, he forgives him, and he restores him. And he says, learn from it and do better. Feed my lambs. And so on days when my heart gets cold, I think about the forgiveness and the restoration that Christ brings. The third thing I want to talk about briefly is the mystery of redemption. I love the book of Ruth. If you know anything about their story, it's this mother and her daughter-in-law, and it's just through what seems like endless suffering and hard days, when they're at the very end, out of nowhere, God comes and brings a redeemer, Boaz. And as the family is redeemed, it is said to Naomi that he will be to you a restorer of life and nourisher of your old age. And man, I think about that. I think about how Christ is our true Boaz, how he is the redeemer and the restorer of our lives. David Gibson wrote this book that's really great on Ecclesiastes called Living Life Backwards. This is what he says about the mystery of redemption. He says, part of being wise in this world is learning to accept that we have only very limited access to the big picture. To be sure, we often want access to it, for God's put eternity into man's heart. But the point is that we cannot find out what God has done from the beginning to the end. God is not being unkind to us by not sharing it. The point is that we are not built to understand the big picture precisely because we live in time and God does not. If we could see the end from the beginning and understand how 1 billion lives and 1,000 generations and unspeakable sorrows and untold joys are woven into a tapestry of perfect beauty, then we would be God. And man, sometimes I just have to sit back, and whether it's remembering my own life, my own story, how when I was in middle school, I was starting to hang out with this group of people, and my life would have gone a completely different way. I was at the precipice of it, and then out of nowhere, this random kid, random friend, invites me to hear about the gospel of Jesus Christ. And I think about my 30 years of walking with the Lord and how he has brought such beautiful redemption. I think about people who their character has been altogether changed through hardship. I think about people who received unexpected and difficult news and how God was so good to make them strong through a season of suffering. I've seen God answer countless prayers. I've seen God show up in the 11th hour time after time. And I go, what I don't, and Gibson is right, I am not at the pay grade in your life or my life to even bring explanation into what God is doing, but I can see part of that tapestry being woven. And so I'm reminded when my heart gets cold, the mystery of redemption, that he is to us a restorer of life and nourisher, even to our old age. And then lastly, I think about future grace in a physical world. Man, I love this. I need this in my life. I think about the better physical days that are yet to come. I think about the fact that Jesus' resurrection being physical means everything. That our future in heaven is not some kind of weird us floating around as disembodied spirits and angels playing harps, because I think it took me a long time to acknowledge that that into infinity seems really boring. And it's because I didn't realize that God had a physical world for us that one day we will physically join Christ. And so I have this picture in my office of my brother, our friend Jordan, and I think my wife took it, and we are laughing hysterically. We are dying. I don't even know what we're laughing at, but I keep that in my office because I know that that moment is not wasted, that that moment is a signpost to better, stronger, more robust laughter, that we will laugh the loudest in the days to come. I think about C.S. Lewis, who did more for me than anybody else in this realm. The Great Divorce, one of my favorite books, this allegory about an earth that is becoming more like hell for those who reject grace and more like heaven for those who receive it. And his descriptions of this physical world where men and women, as they're growing into their heavenly bodies, can't even walk on the grass because it's so strong. They can't even pick up an apple because it weighs so substantively. And I need this picture of a physical future life with God and the grace that will one day be there for us. Revelation 22 describes it this way. And then the angel showed me the river of the water of life, bright as crystal, flowing from the throne of God and of the Lamb through the middle of the street of the city, and also on either side of the river, the tree of life, with its 12 kinds of fruit, yielding its fruit each month. And the leaves of the tree were for the healing of nations. These trees are real, and they heal the nations. And no longer will there be anything accursed, but the throne of God and of the Lamb will be in it, and his servants will worship him, and they'll see his face, and his name will be on their foreheads, and night will be no more, and they will have no need. They will need no light of lamp or sun, for the Lord God will be their light, and they will reign forever and ever. There are unimaginable glories that await us, and the brightest smiles and the richest laughter will be part of a future world where everything is redeemed, and amidst all the brokenness that we experience all the time. I am so here for that. I am so here for a reminder of the better days that await us because of the gospel of Jesus Christ. And again, so these are just 4 things that I think about when my heart gets cold. 4 of what we could probably say are endless, infinite realities of Christianity. And so our hope this morning is in this time that we all have back, that we would remember God's protection, God's provision, God's grace in our lives, and how he, even on this day, is sustaining us yet again. So love you guys very much. Looking forward to us all being back together when everything warms up, and we'll see you soon.